You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Samah Abukhodeir. How are you?
That was so good, Benny. Thank you. I'm doing well.
Thank you very much. I practiced that for a while before the show. Samah is the founder and managing partner of the Florida Probate and Family Law Firm. It's a pleasure to have you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So how are you doing? How's everything going in sunny Florida?
So it is going well. COVID is increasing in numbers, but we're trying to get it under control. And we are limiting people coming into the office, working from home most days, and just trying to adjust.
So your staff is working from home when you can work from home?
Yeah, so most of them are working either Monday, Wednesday, Friday from home or Tuesday, Thursday. So we're alternating and trying to adjust with the times.
Got it. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So it's great to connect again. We actually featured you on Lawyer Stories. That's lawyer_stories on Instagram back October 14th, 2020. So it's been not quite a year. But it's awesome. I love, connecting with everybody who we've featured in the feed. And like now that we have a podcast, like it's really fun to have people come on and share their story. And you're actually, if everybody went back and looked at your story from 10, 14, 20, like your story did really well. Like people loved what you had to say. You got a lot of engagement, and it's really a very cool story. So I'm happy to have you here. And thanks for sharing your story with the Lawyer Stories community. So you start your story by saying you were telling us that you wanted to be a doctor. I believe I read up further and I think it's pediatrician, but you never wanted to go to law school. So tell us a little bit about that. First start off where you were born and raised, and then tell us about that.
Sure. So it kind of connects actually. Born and raised in a small town called Lake Wales, Florida. Most people haven't heard of it, but it's a small town in between Orlando and Tampa. Left there when I was 17 to go to FSU. Go Noles.
Go Noles. There you go.
And then came down to FIU for law school. And the reason we ended up in Lake Wales was because my father went to medical school in Germany. So parents are both from Jerusalem. They were born there. Wow. My dad left when he was young. And then went to Egypt, finished middle and high school there, I believe, and then got a full ride to college and medical school in Germany. So he left. And so when he came to the States, he had already finished school, finished becoming a doctor, was practicing in Germany, and then sat for the boards and missed it by 1 point each time he took it. He took it twice and it was super expensive. So he gave up on his dreams. So I thought,
Wait, he didn't take it the second time?
He took it twice and he missed it by 1 point each time.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was hard.
Yeah.
And so I think as a child, I saw what he went through. I remember actually him studying for his board exams when I was little. He would lock himself in one of the rooms and just study. So that was my inspiration for becoming a doctor.
So where did he end up? I'm just curious, what did he end up doing when he, didn't go on to practice medicine?
Sure. So he became a food scientist tech at Florida's Natural. So, which is why we ended up in Lake Wales. So you go to the grocery store, if you look for a brand of juice called Florida's Natural, their headquarters are in Lake Wales, Florida. So
it's a good juice right there. I think I've had it a couple times. It's solid.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So he ended up there for, I want to say almost 25 years, if not more. And then just retired a couple years ago. No, he retired almost 3 years ago. And yeah, it was his goal and it wasn't accomplished. And I think growing up and seeing him study so hard, that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So you wanted to, but then like when did the tide turn and you were like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer? Like that's the question I like to ask. Like what was that moment that you said, I'm going to law school?
So my story is kind of interesting. When I was at FSU, I think it was junior year, I was studying for the LSATs not studying for the LSATs, spoke to my parents, and we're Palestinian, and culturally girls get married young and start their family and still go to school. But that was never my goal. So I spoke to them and I don't know where this came in my head, but I realized that medical school was going to take forever. So I just decided, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to do this. I'm going to try something else. I don't know what I want to do. I think I want it to be mental health related, because I was a psychology major with a minor in child development and Arabic, actually. So I decided to sit for the LSATs and sit for the GRE. And a week before law school started, made the decision that I was going to law school.
Okay. Really? A week before it started. Now, had you applied to a lot of places, or you were just sort of like, I'll just go down to FIU, that sort of thing?
I applied to a bunch of schools actually, because I was in a program that allowed us to apply to as many schools as we wanted for free. So
okay.
I did not mention this part, but we did not grow up with a lot of money. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, so I was able to receive a full ride to FSU. I was able to receive full scholarship for everything. Like I applied to everything and I ended undergrad with no debt. And so I could take the GRE and the LSATs free of cost.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were just like, let's kind of see where it lands and like maybe decide from there. You said you were you mentioned in your story that you were the only one, you wanted to be the first one to go to college in your family, right? And you have like a big extended family, is that correct or no?
I believe it's 72 first cousins.
I would say that that's accurate then. That's a big extended family.
Yeah, I have a big family.
Yeah. Wow.
My parents are one of many children, and
that's hold on, back 72 first cousins.
Yeah.
Like, how do you manage that? I mean, there's just so many questions with that, but that's like a different podcast, I think. So, well, right? I mean, like, how many cards do you write? Like,
family?
I don't have a big family now.
Oh.
But this show's not about me.
It's a lot of fun.
I have a few cousins who I love dearly. Actually, some who are attorneys down in South Florida, I'll tell you about later. But 72, wow.
Yeah, I think we're 70. The last time I counted, I think we were at 72 first cousins, and we all pretty much love each other, and it's a lot of fun. Like, imagine our weddings. Like,
well, can you imagine like your bachelorette party? I was just thinking like you'd have to get blocks of rooms, like in Vegas or whatever. Okay, sorry. So anyway, that's crazy. So you were the first one out of the 72?
I believe I was the first one to leave home. So definitely educated. We all believe in education, but culturally girls don't leave home.
Okay. Got it.
So it's not, it's not easy to leave home. And my dad was like, no, she's leaving home. She's getting educated.
Yeah.
We can't afford to take out loans if she has a full ride. We trust her, let her go. And he got a lot of heat for it. But he supported it, and so did my mom.
I mean, that's amazing. I always wonder, like, well, not always, but I have wondered that, like you save for your child to like go somewhere to go to school, and then they actually become this really academic student, and then they can go like on their own without needing that money that the parents have saved. So, I mean, I think that's incredible. And I did see like a newspaper article about you, like when you were like younger. No, I mean, this is totally all positive stuff. Like you were just a super good student. And I think like that's sort of like, that's obviously has come out in like your profession. I mean, you know, starting your own firm, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But tell me what like your law school experience was like. Like you went to undergrad, you liked undergrad, like did you like FSU? Like
I loved FSU.
okay.
FSU was a great time. It's the ultimate college experience, like what
Yeah.
you see in the movies. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
FIU, I had never really been to Miami prior, so
Okay.
I left this part out of the story, but I did, when I was in undergrad, I did a international humanitarian camp internship one summer, and it was in the West Bank in the Middle East. And so that was part of the reason I thought, let me take the LSATs because I want to do some humanitarian work. Did not end up in that area, but still, you know, a dream and maybe one day. So yeah, so I came down to FIU, did not know anyone, made a bunch of friends in law school, and then just studied my butt off, and made my first B and C in law school.
Yeah.
It happened.
That's amazing. I mean, oh, your first BNC. I thought like you were talking about like that was good. I'm over here thinking, wow, that's incredible, like a B and C in law school because of the curve. But you're just saying like you went from like the A plus to the A.
It was traumatizing, yeah, but I got over it.
Okay, got it. But that's still very good for law school. Okay. Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. So, all right. So one thing I noticed about your story and just sort of like reviewing like, you know, like what you've done, because that's what we do. So I think it's interesting. I think it's really smart how many externships and how much experience that you have. Because one thing I like to know is like, what was your first job out of law school? So you could tell us like, what was your first job like out of law school? But I think in law school, like you did a lot of externships, right? And like, I think that's so important because in the legal profession, like I feel like we don't get those opportunities unless you really take them in law school. Whereas medical, like you have to go through your residency and your rounds, and like, it's mandatory, right?
Yeah. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was like, let me try as many internships, as many jobs as I can handle in different areas to try to figure out what area I wanted to practice in. And I wish that law schools actually required internships or externships 100%. Or some sort of like practice prior to just like taking the bar and jumping in.
100%. I agree with that for sure. I often advocate for that because I think, you know, that's definitely needed to, you know, to be able to be a successful attorney. So that's great that you kind of had the foresight to be able to do that. So like, what job were you at? Like you don't have to list any names obviously, but like prior to starting your firm, like what were you doing?
So I'm going to take it back. My last semester of law school, I got an internship with the administrative probate judge.
Okay.
And that kind of like sealed the deal for probate because I got hired week 2 of my internship. I got a job with a local firm doing probate litigation. So I was doing that, I think doing 18 credit hours my last semester of law school and interning for the judge. And I think that semester I did really well. I don't know how, but I got into probate that way. Worked for a few firms, worked for that firm, switched jobs. And then right before I started my firm, I was working for a family firm where I was running their probate department. And that's where I got into family as well. So I kind of just, you know, did both areas, and then the referrals kept coming in because people knew I was doing family and probate, hence the Florida Probate and Family Law Firm. And I just said, let's try it.
Are there any like advertising rules against like using Florida family probate law? No, so you could just really
not that I know of. No.
No, that's awesome. So like, did you have a mentor along the way? Would you say like a legal mentor?
Before I started my firm, so I had a mentor when I was in law school and somebody that I can call to this day, and he's a medical malpractice attorney in Miami.
Okay.
But in terms of running the business, no.
Yeah, so what's that like running a business?
It is exciting and terrifying.
So tell us more, like, would you consider yourself like, it's a very sort of, I guess, black and white question, but like, are you like a good boss? Like how, like what, I mean, is it difficult like to manage people? I manage people for my job. Like that's a big part of my job. That's, full-time job. So I know how it is, but what would you say?
I think I'm a damn good boss.
Okay.
I don't think it, I know it. I need to stop saying that. I have 18 employees now in the span of 3 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, and no one has really left me, knock on wood. So I think if you were to ask them, they would probably tell you that we have an excellent culture, an excellent environment, and I have a really good relationship with all of my employees, luckily.
Okay. So go back to the question I asked earlier, like when did you know you wanted to start your own firm? Like how did that happen?
So I was offered partnership at the last firm I was at.
Wow.
And yeah, and I have always networked and brought in business, and I was bringing in a good chunk of business. And I ultimately decided that the partnership was probably not what's best for me.
Mhm.
And so I decided, let's see how this goes. I talked to my parents, I talked to some friends, and just decided, they pushed me in the right direction. And I said, let's see how this goes, even though it was never my plan. And
Right.
it was not something I planned for. So I didn't have a plan. I was just like, let's see how this goes. And that's not how I function. I'm type A with a plan, with lists. And this is something that I just like risked.
Right. So
Yeah.
did you start with an office or did you start out of like a desk or did you share space? Did you have an employee? Was it just yourself?
I started out with a laptop, myself, a part-time law clerk, who is
Okay.
now my probate associate. And we worked from home in the beginning, and then I shared space with a firm, and they gave me a desk that I shared with my law clerk.
Very
We
good.
sat right next to each other every single time he came in.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So she was probably like, I'm sitting near my boss. I can't really like look at my AOL. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. So he was probably like, I can't check like my AOL email. Like she's sitting right next to me. Like that's my
Couldn't
boss.
do anything.
What's that?
He couldn't do anything. Our elbows were like right next to each other. It wasn't a big desk.
So like, how do you eat lunch? Like you got to sit near somebody here and chewing the whole time? Is that?
Pretty much. If he was on the phone and I was on the phone, like we were literally right next to it. It was hilarious.
That's all. And you've grown very quickly. So like, how do you think you've grown so fast? Like you've only been at it for a few years and obviously like, your clients trust you and you're doing an amazing job. You say you bring in business and there's something about you that brings in that business. So how have you grown so fast?
That's a great question. I started with a program about a year and a half after I started my firm called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And they have fractional CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and different quarterly meetings where they teach you about running the firm and running the business. And I had been going to those conferences prior to starting my firm. So that has definitely helped a lot. But I also just think that I know, like, I've just known how to do things naturally, as strange as that sounds. I've always been able to tell, like, if I'm going to hire someone within the first like 2 or 3 minutes of interviewing them.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird, but it works. And I have always networked. So even in law school, I was on SBA all 3 years. I still keep in contact with people. I sit on a ton of boards.
Mhm.
I volunteer as much as I can. I am involved in the Arab community and different bar organizations and associations. So I've just been able to, since I was in law school, just make friends. I can go, this is also strange, but I can like be walking into a supermarket and like someone will just randomly talk to me and I will be able to get business. So I just think
Really?
it's
They'll
been
just
like,
like, they'll tell you their life story? Is that what type of thing?
there's something on my forehead that says,
Really?
come talk to me.
Oh, yeah, okay. I see. Well, that's terrific. So, and you've grown like really fast. You started hiring and like so like, how do you know when like your business is big enough to start like hiring more people? You say you have 18 employees now.
And
Like,
I'm
what was
in
the
the
point when
process of hiring.
what's that? And you're in the process of hiring, really?
Yeah,
That's great to hear, really.
it is. It's, I'm super grateful. It's just, it's also running the business is a full-time job. So you either have to choose, are you going to be running the business or are you going to be practicing law? Like,
So
what
like
are
the
you going to
rainmaker bringing in the clients versus like, are you practicing or are you gonna dish
correct?
it off the bit? So like, tell me about like I don't really love this like a thing, but like the bread and butter, but like, tell me about like tell me about your firm. Like, what is your real like specialty that you have everybody doing? Obviously probate lawyer, but is it wills, trusts, estates, big trusts? Like, what do you got going on?
So 50% of the firm is family law. So that is divorce, child custody, domestic violence, adoption, paternity, post-judgment action. So think anything to do with a relationship, whether you're married or unmarried, if there's kids involved, any sort of family disputes, right? So
Okay.
that's 50%. And then the other 50% is what's called probate law, which nobody really understands what that means. But you go through probate court to be
Okay.
able to inherit certain assets that somebody leaves behind. So estates,
Okay.
guardianships, and estate planning. And
Okay.
within estate planning, you have like specialties. So we really work with the special needs community and help parents with special needs children so that they can do their estate planning in case anything happens to them. So that's the other 50% of my practice.
Wow, okay. So are you still actively taking cases? Meaning like, are you doing them yourself or are you dishing them off to your associates?
So I know every single case in my firm, and we have a ton, thank God. I know every single file because I'm involved in strategy every time we have a file meeting, which is at least twice a month. So we sit and we strategize depending on the team. Am I doing the actual legal work? Only on a handful of cases. And it just depends, but the majority of the work is done by the associates and the paralegals. And then anytime there are questions or file meetings, I'm always involved.
Wow, that's incredible. So like, do you think like, how do you think you wanted to do like family law? Like I mean, that's a very sensitive subject for people, so it's very difficult. So how do you like, how did you come across that? Like, did you ever think of doing personal injury or anything like that?
I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I tried so many different things in law school that I was just kind of like, let's see what happens. I really liked criminal law. I did an internship with a criminal judge who's still on the bench, Judge Marissa
Yep.
Tinker Mendez, and she's awesome. And I still keep in contact with her. So I thought I wanted to be a PD, but then got the job my last semester at the probate firm, and ultimately just it went from that to then adding family law to it at my last firm. And the business came in. So what I've learned is you might not necessarily love the areas of law that your firm practices, but business is important. So if you're able to generate that and people trust you to take good care of them and their children and what matters most to them, then you must be really good at what you do. And so it just kind of fell in my lap.
Right. So, and are you drafting wills and doing estates
Yeah.
and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say on like behalf of Lawyer Stories, like if there are people out there in our community that you see that you want to connect with, like attorneys and like, it doesn't sound like you need the business, but if you want to connect with other attorneys and like network, like that's what we're here for. So, we're soon going to have a whole platform where everybody's going to be able to do that. And we'd be glad to like introduce you, do like the warm introduction, like to
I
somebody.
would love that.
If you ever want to, meet somebody, we love doing that sort of thing.
I would love that.
Yeah. So question about estate planning. So like how much tax do you actually have to know?
It depends.
Oh, there it is.
It depends.
Classic lawyer answer. Here we go.
So it depends on how much you have in assets. So
Right.
I believe it's like 11.2 or 11.3 million. So
Okay.
per person. So if you're over that threshold, you need a tax attorney. If you have certain business entities, you might need a tax attorney and an accountant to review it. It all depends.
Okay. So I have another question. So
Sure.
you see online, right? Like you see commercials for like wills that are like, you can just print them off the internet and like write your own will and like
Legal Zoom.
what have you. Like, so what is the benefit to using an attorney rather than somebody going to these online sources where they print the document, they sign it, then they're good to go?
You sound like our potential new clients during a consultation. So
Do
what
I
should
really?
pay
I might be a
you?
new
Yeah.
client because we are going to be looking into that. So, except I'm in
So-
Massachusetts and you're in Florida. So,
I'll find you someone, don't worry.
thank you.
Um,
That'd be great.
I will, we'll talk. So the benefit is that your family will most likely not have to go through litigation because you haven't executed it according to your state law. So most people will come to us and become a litigation file, which makes us a ton of money. So when you are doing these things and you're going on LegalZoom, you're just gonna have to pay, your family's just gonna have to pay an attorney later on, or you yourself are gonna have to pay
Right.
an attorney later on. So what ends up happening is people print it, but they don't know that there needs to be 2 witnesses and a notary present at the
Well,
signing.
like, shouldn't LegalZoom say that? Like, they should say at the bottom of the thing, like, hey, make sure you have 2 witnesses and like the person's not in the other room, or actually it depends on the state if they're in the other room, like, because sometimes they actually have to see you and sometimes they could just be sitting at the dining room table. You know what I mean? Like those whole things, like the scenarios that we heard in law school, right?
Right?
But like those print it and sign it companies don't do that, right?
I don't think they do. I mean, I don't think there's an instruction page that says, this is how you sign a will, or this is how you sign a power of attorney. So they end up just coming to us anyways.
Okay, so they don't look at the intent of the document, which I would have to argue, like, you gotta look at the intent, what this person wanted to, how they wanted to distribute their estate. Okay. And plus, I mean, that's a great state to be in, Florida, for that type of stuff, right? I mean, there's so much going on there, and the
There is.
population is probably ripe for getting their wills and trusts done and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and also,
go ahead.
sorry, and also a lot of litigation for that because you have a lot of elder abuse and exploitation. So kids
Okay.
will print it out and tell their parents, hey, sign this, and their parents won't know what they're signing. Or we have huge gaps in ages in different marriages because you just have older people marrying much younger people. So it makes business and our cases very interesting.
I would say so. Florida, it's just an interesting place.
It is.
I miss it down there. I got to get back down to Miami. Do you know we had our first Lawyer Stories networking party in Miami right before the pandemic hit. It was great. We co-sponsored with another group, and Sidebar of South Florida. We had a great time. It was downtown Miami. So we hope to do that again when COVID's over in like 10 years. So like, what have we left out? Like, let's hear more about your firm. Like, do you want to tell us about like I know we've covered a lot of ground. But you have this firm, you have 18 employees now, you started a few years ago, you're rapidly growing. It sounds like you're doing 50% of family law, 50% probate law. Like what's a typical day like for you?
Every day is different, but first thing I do, I come in somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. I check my emails. I deal with any files that have emergencies on them. We always have emergencies. I talk to new clients and do consultations. I check in with all of my employees. We use Slack and we use Zoom, so we see each other because people are everywhere. What's Slack?
Yeah.
Did you use AIM growing up?
Oh, did I use AIM? That's how I learned how to type.
Okay, so Slack is AIM basically on the computer.
You didn't know AIM. You're way too young to know AIM. So
I used AIM. Yes, I did, but thank you.
All right.
So yeah, so I keep in contact with all of my employees because we have it on the computer, so you can just type them and they're right there.
So do you watch them on Zoom? Is that what you're saying?
No. If we have meetings, like we'll all jump on a Zoom.
Oh, because you guys are at different places. Okay.
Yeah.
Slack is a good idea. Okay. Does that appear like the AIM type of thing?
It does. So it's a little icon on the bottom of your desktop.
Okay.
And people just stay in contact. So they'll be like, hey, I'm stepping out. Hey, I'm taking lunch. Hey, I'm with this client. Hey, this person's calling. So it's really convenient and awesome.
Is that a free service or no?
Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah.
We're gonna look into that. Okay, cool.
You should. It's pretty cool. And then I teach at FIU, Florida International University.
That's right. I wanted to ask you about that. Tell us about FIU. You've been doing that for a couple years now?
This is year 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's flown by. I just started year 5. Last year we were fully remote, so I was teaching on Zoom. This year we're back in person. It's really interesting.
Did they do any weird Zoom tricks while you're like did your class do anything weird?
My class didn't. I had Zoom bombers that showed up in my class that were not in my class and just started saying really inappropriate stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, so first year at FIU, I was teaching a clinic on probate, guardianship, and estate planning. And then last 4 years, I've been teaching epistemology at the Honors College. So I have freshmen in honors.
What was that now? A what?
Epistemology.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Study of knowledge, how we learn, what we learn. I give it a legal spin.
Really?
I co-teach it with head of physics and an English professor. So it's a really interesting pod. We usually have somewhere between 50 to 80 students, depending on the year. It's a year-long course.
Okay.
And yeah, so teach there twice a week. I really love it. I like, talking and mentoring with freshmen. It's a lot of fun. And come back from university on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then just keep working till pretty late. And I'm trying to figure out a solution to that because we can't be working this late.
No, you can't. I mean, it's late now, right? And we're working. So like, do you utilize the Socratic method?
I do.
You do. Tell me about that. Like, how do you do that on Zoom? Like, do people sort of say, oh, okay, and then you see like the computer saying connect, like they purposely like fall off the computer? Like, how does that work?
They just don't respond on Zoom. So last year when we were teaching on Zoom, most kids, I shouldn't say most, a handful wouldn't show their face, and you couldn't require them.
Okay.
So I would just randomly cold call and be like, hey, Steve, what did you read about today? Tell us something interesting about the reading. And then they would go silent, or they would, freeze, or they would say something if they read. It was interesting.
Like, how often would they go silent?
I would say 1 out of 5.
That's not bad. So you would do that in the actual college before COVID, you would call
Yeah.
on people.
Yeah, but then we had first day last week. I made them stand up, say their names, say where they're from, say what their majors are, tell us something interesting about them. And I could see them shaking. And I told them I wasn't doing it as punishment on the first day, but I told them, I said, I had a fear of public speaking. I still do to this day. And I go, you gotta get out of it. And we're gonna learn how to do that in this class.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good way to do it. I know that's like the one thing I bring up about law school is like the Socratic method. I think that was my one thing. Like, I feel like I couldn't relax in class and like actually try to learn because I always tried to like pretend and like I'd be like writing like so like I wouldn't get called on, but that didn't really work. So anyway, so Samah, what else would you like to say? Did we leave anything out tonight? I want to make sure we cover everything. I know we covered a lot of ground.
I can't think of anything. No, I think we talked about personal, professional. I can't think of anything. Do you have any questions for me?
No, that was it. I think we covered a lot of material here about your life and your profession. You're doing a fantastic job. I would refer anybody to you right now. And we will hopefully, connect in the future and, maybe interconnect you with some lawyers and start like a whole networking thing. That's sort of what we're doing here at Lawyer Stories. So how can people get in touch with you?
They can email me at info@flpfl.com, or they can call me at 305-677-5119, or they can go on the website www.flpfl.com and there's a contact me page.
Nice, very good. Samah Abukhodeir. Thank you. Actually, I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
If you had advice for any person who wants to be a lawyer, what would that be?
Go and intern at a law firm before you make that decision.
Okay, very good. I think that's solid advice. Thank you so much for being here. Wait right there. Lawyer Stories community, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.